You've been awake for maybe 2 hours today. The rest of the time, something else was driving. Every reaction you had this morning, the way you checked your phone before your feet hit the floor, the familiar spiral of worry that kicked in before breakfast, the quiet resignation you felt looking in the mirror, all of it was yesterday's program running on schedule. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how that program got installed, why it keeps looping, and the single shift that makes it lose its grip. Your subconscious mind processes millions of bits of information per second. Your conscious mind handles a tiny fraction of that, which means the vast majority of your thoughts, feelings, and decisions are being made by a part of you that operates below the threshold of awareness. And this part has one job: efficiency. It takes whatever you've repeated, emotionally, mentally, physically, and turns it into a default setting, a groove worn so deep that the needle drops into it the moment you wake up. Think about driving a familiar route. You arrive and barely remember the turns. Your hands move the wheel. Your foot hit the brake at the right moments. You were somewhere else entirely, yet the car got home. That's your subconscious operating a program. Useful for driving. Devastating when the program is, "I'm always struggling," or "good things never last," or "I have to earn love." The mechanism behind this is brutally simple. Between birth and roughly age 7, your brain operated primarily in a state of high suggestibility. You were downloading. Every interaction with your parents, every emotional atmosphere in your home, every repeated phrase and unspoken tension went straight into your operating system without a filter. You didn't evaluate whether money is hard to come by was true. You didn't question whether love required performance. You absorbed it the way soil absorbs rain, completely, passively, and permanently, unless something disrupts the ground. Dr. Bruce Lipton spent decades researching cellular biology and arrived at a conclusion that shook his own field. The cell's behavior is controlled by its environment, by the signals it receives. Scale that up. Your cells are receiving signals from your subconscious beliefs every second of every day. The body you walk around in, the energy you carry into rooms, the reality that keeps showing up at your door, all of it is responding to a broadcast you set up before you could read. So here you are, decades later, wondering why the same patterns repeat. Same kind of relationship, same financial ceiling, same feeling of being close to a breakthrough that never arrives. The content of your life may shift. New city, new job, new partner, but the emotional texture stays eerily consistent. Because you changed the scenery, while the projectionist kept rolling the same film. This is where most people get stuck. They try to change the screen. They rearrange external circumstances with enormous effort, and for a few weeks, maybe months, things feel different. Then the old feeling creeps back, the familiar heaviness, the quiet voice that says, "See? I told you." And they conclude that change is impossible, or that they're uniquely broken, when the truth is far more mechanical than that. The program simply resumed. It was never interrupted. It was only briefly drowned out by the novelty of new circumstances. Neville Goddard taught something that cuts through this loop with surgical precision. He said the subconscious mind accepts whatever the conscious mind impresses upon it through feeling and repetition. The same mechanism that installed the original program is the mechanism that can overwrite it. You went in through feeling. You come out through feeling. The door works both ways. But, and this is where the real work lives, you can't overwrite a program you're running unconsciously. The first step is always awareness. Catching yourself mid-loop, that moment when the old thought fires, and instead of following it down the spiral, you notice it. You see the thought as a thought, a recording, a relic from a 7-year-old's interpretation of a complex world. That pause between stimulus and response is the entire gap where freedom lives. Most people never find that gap. They believe they are their thoughts. The worry feels like wisdom. The limitation feels like maturity. "I'm just being practical," they say, while running a program that was installed by a frightened child watching adults argue about bills. The identity and the program have fused so completely that questioning one feels like losing the other. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. If you've been running the same mental loops for 20, 30, 40 years, those loops have shaped your brain physically. Neural connections strengthen with repetition. The thought you think most often has the widest highway in your mind. Trying to think a new thought feels like walking through tall grass when there's a paved road right there. Your brain will resist. Your body will resist. Every cell has been marinating in the chemistry of your old emotional state, and it will send signals, anxiety, restlessness, irritation, demanding you return to the familiar. This is the moment most people quit. They mistake withdrawal for truth. The discomfort of a new assumption feels wrong, so they assume it is wrong. See, I tried positive thinking and it made me feel worse. You didn't feel worse. You felt unfamiliar. There's a canyon of difference between those two experiences. And confusing them is how the old program protects itself. The practice that interrupts the loop is deceptively simple and genuinely difficult. Every night, as you fall asleep, your brain passes through the same suggestible state you lived in as a child. That threshold between waking and sleeping is a window. Neville called it the state akin to sleep. In that window, you impress a new scene, a short, vivid, sensory-rich loop of the reality you're stepping into. You feel your hands touching what they'd touch. You hear the words you'd hear. You let the emotion of the fulfilled wish saturate your body as you drift off. One night won't rewrite decades of programming. This is where discipline enters. You do it again tomorrow night, and the night after. You do it when you're tired and it feels pointless. You do it when your day delivered evidence that contradicts every image you're holding. You do it especially then, because the subconscious doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a physically lived one. Every repetition is a new groove being carved alongside the old one. Eventually, the new groove becomes the path of least resistance. During the day, the work shifts to what's often called mental diet, monitoring the stream of internal commentary and refusing to feed the old narrative. A thought will arise, "This always happens to me," and your job is to catch it before it completes the circuit, before the feeling attaches. Before the body responds with its rehearsed chemistry, you catch it and you gently redirect. The key word is gently. This is revision, not warfare. You're training a mind that has been left unsupervised for decades. Patience is the discipline. The objection that rises here, and it deserves respect, is this: am I just deluding myself? Isn't this just denial dressed up in spiritual language? Fair question. Consider what you've been doing until now. Running a program installed by a child, treating it as absolute reality, and calling that clear-eyed realism. The subconscious has been generating your experience of reality this entire time. The only question is whether you'll participate in what it generates or keep accepting the default. Something strange happens when you sustain this practice past the initial resistance. The world begins to rearrange itself around your new assumption in ways you couldn't have orchestrated consciously. A conversation happens at the exact right moment. An opportunity surfaces that you would have missed before because your old program had you looking in the wrong direction. Synchronicities that the rational mind wants to call coincidence, but that happen with such precision and frequency that coincidence starts to feel like the less plausible explanation. This is the subconscious mind doing what it has always done, faithfully reproducing whatever is impressed upon it. The machine was never broken. It was never working against you. It was executing flawlessly, just running code you didn't choose. The grief in that realization is real. Years spent living out someone else's limitations, someone else's fears, someone else's fears, someone else's fears. Let it move through you, and then recognize what it means. The machine works. It has always worked. And now you know where the input terminal is. Every morning you wake up is another chance to catch the program before it catches you. That 5-second window when consciousness returns and the old identity hasn't fully loaded yet, that's your opening. Fill it with the feeling of who you're becoming before the momentum of who you've been takes over. Some mornings you'll miss it. The old loop will grab you before your eyes are open. That's fine. The practice is the catching, again and again, with the steady patience of someone who finally understands what they're dealing with. You've been asleep inside a waking life, following instructions you never agreed to, building a reality from blueprints you inherited. The alarm is this awareness, and the hand reaching for the snooze button, that familiar pull back toward the comfortable program, is the only thing left between you and a life you consciously chose.